John Turner was born in Wales in 1806 to a family of builders. He sought employment in London with Lewis and Thomas Cubitt, an architect and master builder respectively, and Turner worked with them for 7 years. He married his wife Elizabeth in 1827, and together they sailed from Liverpool to Upper Canada in 1830. Upon arriving in Upper Canada, the pair had 6 kids, 3 girls and 3 boys, between 1830 and 1839. Unfortunately, 2 of the boys died young. Turner bought a lot on Nelson Street in 1839 to build a home for his family, which would eventually add 3 more children. Unfortunately, Elizabeth would pass away before her 50th birthday. Only Turner and 3 of his daughters would survive to see Brantford flourish. Turner served on the first fire department in Brantford in 1836 and was a town councillor from 1849 to 1864. And he kept building in Brantford as well as other cities like Toronto, Caledonia, and Stratford into his later years, and passed away in January of 1887 at the age of 81. Turner dedicated almost 60 years of his life to building in Brantford, and today we're going to talk a little bit about some of his more famous architectural designs here in the city. The first of which being Old City Hall. So in 1847, Brantford achieved town status, but still had no town hall. And a year later, the proceeds of the farmers' market would help fund the building of the town hall. By 1850, the town consisted of 3,200 people, 1 town hall, and 6 churches. Citizens as early as 1909 were arguing for a separate market and town hall space. Vendors and farmers were not happy about a fully outdoor market and being open to the elements all year round. There was a proposal for a building in 1935 that would take up the entirety of the block on Dalhousie Street, and if needed, extend outward on Market and George. The cost of the proposal was $89,498, about $1.6 million today. And there was much debate about this market in council, whether there should be a new building, an extension of the current site, or leaving it as is. The town hall, built in 1849, was built in a classical revival style by Turner. And keeping with the simplicity of the style, the building featured exposed plain brick facades with a deep, undecorated cornice, pediments, and multi-pane windows. The importance of the building was emphasized by double flights of stairs from the ground to the second floor, and by a cupola containing clocks. This town hall was demolished in 1967 in anticipation of a new development, which later turned into the Market Square Mall. The current City Hall opened later that year, in 1967, and is famous for its brutalist-style architecture. And it was designed to, quote, depict the great strength and stability of democratic government, unquote. The next of Turner's designs is the Brant County Courthouse. Originally built in 1852, there was additions added on in 1861 and 1886, and the original structure contained courtrooms, offices, a library, and a jail. In 1853, the construction cost totaled $50,000, which is a little over $2 million today. And Judge Arthur Sturgis Hardy first practiced law here. He was born December 1837 in Mount Pleasant, and became Brantford's first town solicitor in 1867. He was the Brantford MPP from 1873 to 1891, and the leader of Ontario Liberals and the 4th Premier from 1896 to 1899. He retired from politics in 1899 and died in 1901 at 63 years old from appendicitis. There was restorations and remodeling done to the courthouse in 2005 due to 2 floods. And as one of the original and most distinguished buildings in Victoria Park Square, the courthouse sets a standard for the surrounding buildings to follow. The scale of the building makes it the most predominant in the area, and strongly defines the north center edge of Victoria Park. The interior of the courthouse is finished predominantly with oak and with intricately carved details at the pilasters, stairs, doors, and window heads. The original courtroom space has been preserved, but its details no longer reflect the original, but rather the refurbishing and craftsmanship of the 1886 alterations. The grandeur of the building is also maintained through the use of mosaic floor tiles, metal ceiling panels, which have later been painted over, and frosted glass windows. One of the many residential homes that Turner designed was located at 55 Chestnut Ave. This home was built in 1876 and features bay windows on either side of a central tower and stained glass at the back of the house. And interesting to note is the home features a patterned slate roof, which is a long-lasting material and, if properly installed, can last anywhere from 100 to 150 years. And this home was once owned by Edward O. Fanjoy, Superior Court Justice, from 1972 to 1997. One of the more prominent of Turner's designs is Grace Anglican Church, and the church is credited with the oldest congregation in Brantford, and Grace Anglican was originally established in 1830. The original church building was built in 1832 on the same site as it currently stands. And due to a large influx in congregation members, Grace Anglican decided to build a new, larger church in order to accommodate the growth. At that time, Turner was a member of the congregation and was selected as architect to design the new church. Cornerstones were laid in 1856 and construction was finished in 1858. The interior is split into 3 rows of pews, 1 large in the center and 2 smaller on the right and left side, and 6 stained glass windows line each side of the sanctuary. The bell tower was not actually an original part of the church, and it was added much later in 1918. Due to the addition, the main entrance was changed from Church Street to West Street. Another prominent of Turner's designs is Yates Castle. Built in 1864, it was intended to be the testament to the wealth and power of its owner, railroad magnate Henry Yates, who commissioned the home to include the most lavish of features of its time, including a wine cellar, a servant's house, speaking trumpets, hot and cold running water, and even a schoolhouse linked to the mansion via an underground tunnel. Yates was instrumental in the development and redevelopment of the Great Western Railway, chief engineer of the Grand Trunk Railway, and partner with John Stratford in a railway consulting and contracting firm. Winarden is a testimony to the revenue generated by the railway era in the 19th century in Ontario. Its location, overlooking the trains which pass by the property frequently, provides a constant reminder of the influence the railway had on the city's development. Another influence exerted upon the property is Yates's English background. Winarden, with its garden walls, entrance gate, and detached servants' quarters, and other amenities, is a rare example of the English aristocracy. The terraced lawn, from where it is said comes the name Terrace Hill, is a further evidence of the English influence. Now, Yates's business partner, John Stratford, also employed Turner to help build a hospital across the road from the Asylum for the Blind. In 1884, Stratford donated the building to the city. This was one of the last designs that Turner constructed before he passed away, and this design was extremely complex and decorative, which was very common in the late 19th century. The 3-story facades were finished in a yellow brick through which was added 5 double rows of red brick and red brick medallions. Almost every pointed window had heads made of alternating yellow and red brick. Turner also designed Park Baptist Church. Built in 1870, Park Baptist Church was formed when 29 members of First Baptist left their church to begin a new work that, within a few years, was rapidly becoming prominent in Brantford. A church building was erected across the street from Victoria Park. Thomas Shenstone, a longtime leader of First Baptist, called it, quote, the prettiest church in Brantford, unquote. The church closed in 1992, but is still standing and, until very recently, was used as a place of worship. And many of the worshipers came from First Baptist. The lot on George Street was purchased by William Cochran, the pastor of Zion United, in 1881 for $3,000. Construction of Park Baptist began in 1881 and was completed 2 years later in 1883, and originally sat about 300 people. It was described by the expositor as, quote, a beautiful edifice complete in its comfort and elegance, and is one of the handsomest and most complete churches in the city, unquote. By 1910, $20,000 of renovations occurred to the building, including new windows for the Sunday school, retouching the stonework, seating increased by 540, including a gallery and a sanctuary. An auditorium in the basement was included for Sunday school use. New heating and lighting systems were added as well. There was also a kitchen renovation in 1959 and an addition of a parking lot in 1978. Park Baptist officially closed its doors in 1992 after 122 years of worship. This was the result of congregation members moving away from the downtown area in favor of the suburbs and an inability for new membership. The building stood empty for the better part of a decade and was only saved from demolition after the round stained glass window was given a heritage designation. Brant Community Church purchased the building in 2000 and renovated it once more. They used the space for ministry until 2010, when they moved to the Wesley United building in Eagle Place in order to accommodate their growing congregation. Another residence designed by John Turner is that of the W.H. Breather House on Brant Ave. It was built in 1870 for Henry Breather, who owned a dry goods business on Colburn Street from 1883 to 1894. The home was completed in 1870 at a cost of $7,000 and was built in an Italian style of architecture. The building is home to 16 rooms, all fitted out and designed with a special eye to comfort and elegance. Gas and hot and cold water were supplied to all of the rooms in the home. 121 Darling Street is another home designed by Turner. Again, built in 1870 in the Italianate style of architecture, many of the features still remain on the building. Historically, the property is significant as a very prominent local family owned it, the Wilkes family, who were original settlers in the community. John Aston Wilkes came to Upper Canada in 1820. He settled in Little York, now Toronto, and became a merchant. His two sons, James and John, came to Brantford as early as 1823 to establish a general store as a branch of their father's business. Then Mr. Wilkes Sr. followed his sons to Brantford. George S. Wilkes, son of Wilkes Sr., served as mayor of the town of Brantford, and James Wilkes was the municipal treasurer of Brantford for a number of years. Dr. Henry Wilkes, also a son of Wilkes Sr., became the organizer of many independent churches throughout Upper and Lower Canada. In 1828, he organized a non-denominational Sunday school, which eventually formed as the basis for the Congregational Church in Brantford, and James Wilkes served as secretary and librarian of the school for nearly 60 years. Our final Turner location for today is 98 George Street, and construction on the building began in 1855 and was finished in 1873 for a Dr. Theodore Brown. The prestigious mansion the Brantford Club now calls home was once the private residence of Dr. John Young Brown, a noteworthy physician, and his bride Margaret. In May 1898, 5 Brantford men, a manufacturer, a banker, a publisher, a barrister, and a gentleman, all came together to form a social club for like-minded gentlemen of Brantford. By July 16, 1898, Letters Patent Incorporated such a club had been signed. On New Year's Eve in 1898, the doors of the Brantford Club opened for the first time. Recreation was conversation, accompanied by liquor and wine, cards and billiards, and other games of chance. The club was incorporated as a men's club, and membership was restricted to gentlemen only by ballot. At that point, ladies were then not welcome into the club. But in 1910, the bylaws were amended to allow members to bring lady friends for supper after 8 p.m. And this was for the dining room only, and entry had to be made from the veranda. Nearly a century later, by 1990, ladies were finally welcomed as full members of the Brantford Club, and today memberships are welcome for both men and women, as well as their spouses. And over the years, the Brantford Club has been host to many dignitaries, including 2 Canadian Prime Ministers, Joe Clark and Sir Johnny Macdonald. Thanks for joining us today for an exploration of John Turner's architecture here in Brantford, and be sure to tune in for the month of October as the Brant Historical Society debuts new online content in partnership with Culture Days.